Support for WBFO and What's Next comes from our members and from Health Foundation for Western and Central New York, where racial and socioeconomic health equity are prioritized. Learn more about building healthier neighborhoods at hfwcny.org.
From Buffalo Toronto Public Media, this is What's Next, an hour dedicated to amplifying the voices of marginalized and underrepresented communities across Western New York and Southern Ontario.
We cannot erase, we cannot reform, we cannot make things better if we're uncomfortable having tough conversations,
Absolutely.
if we're uncomfortable talking about race.
What's Next carries forward our mission to engage in meaningful conversations about race, equity, and the shared concerns that deeply affect Buffalo's East Side and beyond.
Don't stop. Make those families part of your life. Their lives are part of yours. Don't stop.
Together, we dive into the real issues, striving for understanding, connection, and change.
In the suburban area, everywhere, we must work and teach our children.
Welcome to What's Next. Today we're talking with Jamie Anderson, one of the co-founders and the COO of F-BITES. We'll get into what F-BITES is in just a second. Jamie, thanks for joining us.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me.
I gotta give it the title here, F-BITES, Food-Based Interventions with Technology, Energy, and Science.
Yes.
It's quite the mouthful there, which I guess is appropriate when we're talking about food.
Yes, absolutely.
So where does that come from?
So when we were coming up with the name, when you're cooking, people don't realize that food is so many things. It's not just, cooking and eating it. It is, you use energy, you use science, you use technology. When we're working with students and young adults, we're teaching them, you have to read directions. Food is an art. You're using the oven. You have to know how to use things. And that's kind of how we came up with the title. And
of course, your husband is Bobby Anderson.
Correct.
By day, becoming a more and more famous chef, right?
Yes.
So, but it's interesting because we were talking a little bit before we went on mic here, and both of you have extensive backgrounds in the food hospitality industry.
Yes.
And it's interesting to see how you've grown. Like we're talking about Bobby being a world famous chef now.
Yes.
But he has humble beginnings. You started off also, with right at the basics of the whole industry.
Yes. It's so funny. It was never the plan. I was actually going to school to be a social worker.
Okay.
And food and beverage was just always there. It was just always something I did. I worked at a country club. I was 15. I got a job there, bussing tables. And then it just morphed into waiting on tables and bartending. I worked in the pro shop, cleaning clubs. And it kind of became my second home.
Okay.
And after doing that for a while, the general manager that was there at the time asked if I would be interested in doing events and promoted me to tournaments and catering sales. And I did that for a while. And it just... I was going to college. I have a degree in humanities and social services to be a social worker, but it just never clicked. I always kind of gravitated back to the restaurant.
I was at an event recently, sitting at having dinner, a catered meal, and the young lady across from us, just graduated from college, was saying how she and her friends are all going to go out to Colorado and they're going to get jobs waiting on tables and bartending. And, even though it doesn't sound like they have any experience, is it that simple?
No, it's not actually.
Yeah.
Everyone, it's so funny because everyone's always, it always seems to be like this go-to job for people
right.
when they're not sure what they want to do. And it's really not, it really does you have to have somewhat of a personality. You got to deal with people. You're going to have conflict. You're going to have people that are not happy, and how you handle those things. It's not always so easy where people are coming out and like they love everything. You're going to have situations where people don't like food, where, they're having a bad day, so they take it out on you. How do you handle that?
Right.
How do you keep things calm and cool so you don't get frustrated?
Yeah. So how about that experience then for you? That it sounds like you're remembering your early days as serving and some of the frustrations maybe you had, but you feel like it's made you more capable, more ready for what the modern world has for you here?
Definitely. I always said I feel that everyone should work in a restaurant for 6 months.
Okay.
Everyone. It should be part of your high school curriculum.
All right.
Just so you are experienced in the world. I feel like restaurants really give you, I don't want to say an outline, but they show you what the world is like. You come in contact with so many different personalities, so many different people, so many different cultures. And for some people, they don't always have that experience.
Right.
So I feel that, I said the restaurant is a good thing it can help you in anything that you do. If you're a lawyer, if you're a doctor, if you become an accountant, it puts you in front of people in a situation that you might not normally always be in.
So you meant, like you said, it should be maybe part of everybody's experience 6 months in a restaurant, but that's really at the core of what F-BITES is all about. It's building curricula for a lot of different constituencies here when it comes to who some of the people who are accessing what's available here and learning as we go. Let's get into just like the beginning of it first, and then we'll move to some of the things, because you guys have really expanded into a lot of areas here.
We have. So when F-BITES started, my husband actually, in the early days, he came off a show called Hell's Kitchen. He came in 4th or 5th place, and he kind of was at a point in his life where as he says, he didn't want to make souffles rise anymore. He wanted to make souls rise,
nice.
And he really wanted to give back to the community that he grew up in and raised his sons in. And he started a program in Niagara Falls City School District at the high school, an after-school program where he was using a kitchen setting to really teach soft skills and workforce development. How to read directions, pay attention, work as a team, be on time, be accountable for things, put your cell phone away, pull up your pants. Like this is a work environment, and that really grew into everything that we are doing today. That was the core of it. Now we have a curriculum inside Niagara Falls City School District where we're doing exactly that. We are in a kitchen setting with 7th and 8th graders in 2 of their preparatory schools. And, it's those exact core values that we're teaching. Put your cell phone away, pay attention, you're a team, you're relied upon, you have to be on time, those exact things.
It's interesting to hear what 7th and 8th graders might think about this program. And I'm guessing, and I could be wrong, and obviously you know this better than I do, is this finally, this field, does it just grab some people right by the soul and they go with it, and others like, it's not for me?
It does.
Okay.
It's definitely, I always tell kids too, it's just as important to know what you don't want to do as it is to know what you do want to do.
Right.
Because you don't want to get into something that you don't enjoy.
Right.
So, but it's, most of the kids really do like it. It's funny because we also have a program in the high school where we have We Proudly Serve Starbucks. We do a summer program with the school district where the kids actually come to our restaurant and work for 4 weeks, and they really, really get that experience of what it's like. I've had some kids come back for 5 years in a row. They want to do it every year. There's kids that, we're in the Buffalo School District. There's kids that Bobby has known and seen and grow, and they come back and we'll be walking somewhere and they stop them like, you don't know what you did for me. I'm here doing this now. I'm here doing that now. And it's really amazing to see the impact it has on people's lives.
Right. Yeah, and also to expand then where, like you said, you guys are in the Buffalo schools in Monroe County too, right? In the Rochester district or what?
Yeah, we are in, so I guess it's called the Glow area, okay, Genesee, Livingston, Orleans, Wyoming. Mm-hmm. So we actually do a program through Literacy West where, because it is a little bit of a distance.
Sure.
So we'll do programs with them a couple times a year where they'll bring the kids out for the day and they'll work in the restaurant with us for about 4 hours. And like I said, a lot of these kids would never come to the falls, come to that area, come to that tourist area. And they see a lot of, again, different personalities, so much different culture. One of the kids, I actually just wrote him a recommendation letter. I said from being in the program, he did it all 4 or 5 times, that he got a job in a restaurant that is in his area there, and he's going to school for culinary now.
Wow.
Yeah, I just wrote him a letter of recommendation.
Well, a success story there for sure.
Yeah, definitely.
We're talking with Jamie Anderson, COO and co-founder of F-BITES, food-based interventions with technology, energy, and science. Intriguing. Also, you guys are in the Niagara County Jail. You have a program there as well.
Yes, we do a reentry program. We actually work with Niagara Orleans BOCES. They actually contract us to be in the jail. And we go in, I should say Bobby does. He goes in, he works with, it'll be around 10 or 11 of the inmates. And we try to find people that are going to be released within the next 6 months. So we do a 4-week program with them, and it's working in a kitchen, and it's actually teaching them those skills, some basic kitchen skills. And then when they're done with the program, they get their apron, their hat. And we have a couple restaurants that will hire these people once they are released, if they stay in that area.
Wow.
Yeah.
So there are a couple of institutions that they're making a commitment to these individuals.
Yes.
Relatively sight unseen. They know they've gone through the program.
Yes.
Wow.
Yeah. And same with us. 95% of my staff has all gone through our program.
Okay.
My staff is anywhere from 14 to 17.
Yeah.
For our restaurants. Obviously I have a couple of older people.
Sure.
But we really try to put our money where our mouth is and engage in the community. I have a couple people that have gone through our prison program that have worked for us. I have one now that currently does as well. And she's amazing. She does great. She opens our restaurant every day for us. So it's really satisfying and gratifying to see come full circle. People that go through the program and then can actually, make a living out of this and do it.
What would you say is the difference when it comes to your program and how you guys go about training people and showing it to, again, it's whether it's 7th and 8th graders, whether it's kids in high school, whether it's people who are incarcerated at the Niagara County Jail. So you have a lot of probably have to pivot to a certain extent. But what do you think is at the core of what you guys are training here?
I would say we are truly workforce development.
Okay,
that is what we use food as a syllabus to get to that, really teaching people the core values of workforce, being focused, being on time, teamwork. It's funny because in the summertime when we hire all the kids that go through the program, you have to explain to them, you have your trial and error at times, but they'll call in because they have a family emergency. They forgot they have a birthday party, and I have to explain to them that that's not a family emergency.
Right.
I understand that's not a problem, but this is why we request off for work.
Right.
You can have this time. I'll give you one. But in the future, that's not a family emergency.
Yeah.
So, and they understand it's teaching them these things,
right.
and I have to explain to them that, we are a small business. And now that you're calling in, you're short staffing the rest of us here. So just as if you were working, you wouldn't like it if someone else called in and now you have to do double the work. So it's really just teaching them accountability and teamwork and, being on time and having some values and taking pride in what they do.
Jamie, you got a lot of experience, but I can tell you're still relatively young, but you're going to have some background when it comes to this. And we hear this a little bit. Are the kids that you're dealing with now, is there a different kind of a attitude, or attitude's not the right word, but do kids come or younger people come into the workforce maybe a little different prepared than they did maybe when you were the 15-year-old who was, helping out in the at the country club?
A little bit, I feel when you're able to work with them at such a young age, that 7th and 8th grade, you're able to have a little bit more time for them to see what it really is.
Right.
I find that when you get to the kids that are already in their 20s, there's definitely that, I don't need this mentality, that they'll just not show up.
Okay.
Where I explain to these children, or young adults, I should say, that it's okay if you don't want to work here, but give me the courtesy of letting me know that you don't want to anymore and, just putting a notice in. It's okay if it's only a couple days, but just don't not show up.
Right.
I tell people you don't want to burn bridges because you never know when you have to cross them again.
Right.
That maybe I'm someone you come to in 10 years and you need a letter of recommendation, and I will gladly do it as long as we left on good terms, but don't just not show up.
And how has that been? I mean, again, you're getting these kids. Getting these kids that you've had a chance maybe to train early on, and now they're working for you. Has the transition worked out pretty well? It
has. And it's nice too. Some of the kids, because they're a little younger, I do deal with some of their parents, and and their parents are great. And it's great to hear because they tell us, as the area is not, a very wealthy area in Niagara Falls. There's definitely some lower income areas there, and so we definitely, the new homeless, if you're familiar with it, is more kids. They don't have a place to stay. They're jumping from couch to couch. They're not staying with their parents. They're staying with aunts. They're staying with grandparents. So it's really difficult for them at times. So I try to keep that in the back of my mind, remembering that sometimes too, for them to come there, sometimes it's the only time they really get to eat as well. So. I know I'm going off on a tangent.
No, but that's a good tangent because those are the kind of issues that we find ourselves talking about on this show a lot. It's just that idea, that portfolio, for lack of a better term, the real life trials of people, and especially young people.
Absolutely. And you have to take that in consideration. You have to remember that, my husband will remind me at times when I get, I'll get a little frustrated with some things, when I'm doing the schedule, for 50 people and everyone's texting me the morning the schedule goes out. Oh, I forgot this, I forgot that, but, all in all, they're really great kids.
Sure.
It's just you try to show them a different way that, you can make money and you can go down this path. You don't have to resort to stealing and doing things maybe that you shouldn't normally be doing. Not that that's what they do, all of them, but,
No.
There's definitely, some of these kids, that's in their family. Some of these kids will tell me, they have brothers and sisters that are already in jail. And that's what they see, so you want to explain to them and show them that, that does happen. And I understand that. But this is also a way where you can make some money, learn a skill, and you could really go anywhere with it.
Right.
I tell people in general will always celebrate milestones, births, marriages, and deaths. They've been doing it since the beginning of time, I feel, Right. So this industry and being in food and beverage will always serve you well at some degree if that's what you want to do.
Yeah. Let's talk about your husband, Chef Bobby Anderson, just a little bit, if you want. Because again, here's an individual who started at the ground level of the restaurant business, and it took some time for him. I mean, he's a very, very successful chef now. There's no doubt about that. Mm-hmm. But can you talk about his timeline from as best you understand it, and what makes him maybe the success that he is?
Yeah, absolutely. He had some people in his life that really believed in him and really gave him some chances. And we always talk about that where a lot of people that he knows, have done jail time or are not alive anymore for whatever reason. And I talk about how, it's God put him on a path. I'll say that, he always was just, food just kind of saved him.
Right.
As we say, he'll tell you he was saved by a spatula.
I like that. Saved by a spatula.
Yeah. He just, he definitely, he had some obstacles in life, and but again, then he had some people that really believed in him, and he had twins young and very young, and it's always seemed like there was always something trying to stop him, but he just kept moving forward. He was at EB Green's for a while. I believe he was like one of the first Black chefs there, and he's definitely had some obstacles, like I said, in life, but he's always overcome them, and he's never let it get him down. He's not that kind of person. If something, comes up, he figures out a solution. He's very in the solution all the time. All the time.
And I'm not getting also the sense that with the two of you in the same household, you got a couple of type A personalities. You guys always on the move, always looking for new recipes, always looking for
yes
new
and
skills.
No. Don't get me wrong. It's nice to just decompress and not talk to anyone for a while.
Sure.
Everyone. It's funny because when the pandemic hit, everyone's like, "Oh my God, I was driving me crazy being home." I'm like, "Oh, I loved it." It's like it was so nice not to go anywhere for 7-8 weeks, and just stay home and relax. But yeah, he, like I said, he went on the show Hell's Kitchen. He came out and he just took a different path at that point, and he really just wanted to help and really give back. He'll tell you his mission is to give. It's all about the kids. It really is. You have to really help them get on the right path so they can continue down in life.
We are talking with Jamie Anderson this morning on What's Next, co-founder and COO of F-BITES, food-based interventions with technology, energy, and science, a program designed to give the people a chance to learn important life skills and help break the cycle of poverty. So we've mentioned it before about money that's available in the restaurant industry, and this is an interesting part of it. And I think this is something that you probably have to make sure that your students understand. There's opportunities inside this industry. You've got to work hard. I don't think there's anybody at a restaurant you ever go into that's a success that people aren't working hard.
Definitely. It also, like I said, it really, for a lot of the kids, if they want to go away to college, I tell them this is a job you can have when you're at college and make some money, in front of the house or back of the house, but it's always, you'll have some experience now, and you'll be more likely to get hired than the person who doesn't have experience.
Right.
So it's, you try to guide everyone and get them down the right path, and hopefully we're doing that. How
about for you? Do you have time to go to other restaurants?
We do. You
Yeah?
know, we a little bit. You know, it's funny.
I'd like to hear that dinner time conversation.
I know. It's funny because people are like, oh, what's your favorite meal? What's your favorite meal? And they expect some very elaborate meal. And like my husband will tell you, like he likes grilled cheese and tomato soup. You know, it just
Well, I can make that for him.
right. But it's just it could be a hot dog, but it just has to be done correctly.
Right.
You know, that's our thing. Like if you're gonna serve a hamburger, just do it correctly.
Yeah.
You know, don't take things for granted. You know, it's interesting because after COVID, we've noticed that a lot of places are okay with just serving mediocre things, you know, and it's, you know, you advertise one thing, but you're serving another, you know, and that's right. If you're going to take our money, give us the right thing,
Right.
you know?
Sure.
And people talk about that, you know, even my friends, they say, you know, the experience that they have at times is not what it used to be.
And is it just my imagination, or is the tipping of servers, has that increased? Can you tell? I mean, I'm just speaking from my own personal experience, but it just seems like that's something that maybe has surged a little bit, or maybe it's subsided. And what do you say?
You know, I think it has a little bit. You know, as someone who did wait tables and bartended, I've always given a little extra, just because I know being on the other end of it.
Yeah, like my wife and my daughter, I've got to support. Right.
Yeah, you know. So I've always been on that side of it, but you know, it's tough because I get it. Because a lot of times too, when people go up and they talk about that, well, you know, you're not waiting on me, why should I tip you? There's still a lot of work that goes into that food that you're getting.
Right.
You know, typically the kitchen staff for the back of the house is not going to be paid as much as the front of the house, which to me, it doesn't make any sense.
Right.
You know, because as much as you need that server, you also need the people to cook the food and wash the dishes. So they're just as important.
Right.
Everyone is equal to me in a kitchen.
Sure.
Or in the whole restaurant per se, you know.
What's the key in the kitchen, though? It's got to be a little bit of controlled chaos there, I would say.
It's a little bit of, it is. But it's also, you know, it has to flow. It has to run right. There has to be a rhythm there. You know, you have to be set up correctly. Everyone has to do their job. You can't jump from station to station. You know, there has to be order per se. You know, like you have to hone your craft, I would say that, but also, you know, take pride in what you're doing. If you're making salads that day, make great salads. If you're washing dishes, make sure the dishes are clean. If you're taking out the garbage, don't do it sloppily, you know. Every position is just as important as the next. I don't think anyone's better than the other person in the kitchen. And I think that's, you know, from kitchen or front of the house. Right. That's always kind of been my mentality. You know, when I was the general manager of the Statler and there would be extra meals, I would always make sure the dishwashers ate first. Just because I would tell the staff, they would get frustrated, but like, you don't want to go back there and wash dishes, do you?
Right,
like,
right.
You know, so well, then there you go. You know, that's a very thankless job, but it's needed.
Right. You
don't want to be the one taking out the garbage, do you?
Right.
You know,
right.
So, and they would understand that then, you know, and they would get that. Like, you have to treat these people with respect, Everyone's just as important.
So now F-BITES also runs a couple of restaurants, right?
Yes, we have a couple of restaurants where what we do is we employ the kids from our programs in those restaurants, you know, and then we have a food truck as well. So
the food truck is mainly in the summertime, is that?
Yeah, it's mainly in the summertime on Old Fall Street.
That's what, Sunshine Barbecue?
Yes, yes.
So it's not available right now?
Unfortunately, no.
Taking the winter off?
But we are doing a program at the Niagara Falls High School where we try to, where we're employing some of the kids in working sporting events.
Okay.
So.
Well, so then the kids get hired at the restaurants?
At the restaurants, yeah, for the summer.
Okay.
So, you know, we try to identify kids throughout the school year that want to work. Mm-hmm. And, yeah, they'll call me and we'll set up an interview and they'll come in and fill out an application. They go through the whole process and then we bring them on board and they'll work for the summer.
So what's next? It sounds like you guys are always. I guess it kind of goes with the restaurant industry, right?
Yes.
Or the food and beverage industry. There's a dynamic quality to it there's always change.
There is always change. You know, there's always new things. But I will say the consistent thing is how you make food. That hasn't really changed ever. You know,
right?
You're braising, you're steaming. You know, you're on top of the stove. Those things haven't changed. But you know, people, I guess, are the X factor that change constantly.
Yeah.
You know, so I think the next step is really just continuing to grow and get out there and help as many people as we can.
Can every kid, can they benefit from this?
I think absolutely.
Yeah.
I think kids and adults. You know, I think, you know, I always tell people, you know, everyone can always use a little brush up, right?
Sure.
A little extra help. But yeah, I think anyone could go through this program and it would help them. You know, just the experience and just maybe seeing things in a different light at times.
So if an adult wanted to go through this, what do you got? Is there an opportunity for them too? Well, that sounds like it's a distant run.
Right. They can come work in the restaurant, Unfortunately, I'll, to get in the program, it is through the school districts,
Sure.
so.
Yeah, I was intrigued there. You gave me a second career option there for half a second. But,
yeah, right.
But this old dog, I don't know if you want to be teaching him new tricks. That's for sure. So finally, what makes the person who's inside this, you've been doing this now professionally for a long time. Your husband's been doing it a long time but are there qualities that are inside you, your husband, the people that you see that are successful in this that are somewhat in common?
I would have to say, honesty. Being honest with yourself and with the people around you.
Okay.
Having somewhat of a work ethic, I understand that there's going to be days you don't want to come to work. That's for everybody, but
I know that. Mm-hmm.
Right. But, unfortunately, that is part of life at times.
Right.
You do have to do that. Just having a little bit of drive, wanting to do better. I would say those are the main things, and just being honest with yourself, with the people around you, and wanting to do good for yourself.
And to parents out there whose kids might have an opportunity to take part in this program, what do you say to them?
Don't be upset when they get yelled at. that will happen, They are in a kitchen. But, I would say to them that I think this will benefit them in anything that they do in life. It'll teach them a few skills, some values, being, like I said, being on time, being accountable, working as a team. And I don't think it could do anything but good for them.
Yeah. And you still like cooking?
I do.
Yeah?
I do.
You got to take a moment to pause there. You got a favorite dish?
Not really.
No?
I just like good food.
Okay.
Good food in general.
All right.
I would say nothing super crazy, but as long as it's good, I'm in.
Yeah.
I like trying new stuff.
Yeah. I it probably was wrong to ask you what your favorite place is out around town, but yeah, we'll most certainly enjoy that. Well, Jamie, appreciate you coming in and talking to us. If somebody wanted to find out more about F-BITES, what should they do?
They can go to our website, fbites.org, FBITES.org.
That's F-BITES, food-based interventions with technology, energy, and science. Jamie Anderson is the co-founder, along with husband, Chef Bobby Anderson, and she's also the COO. Well, Jamie, thanks very much for joining us on What's Next.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me.
Stay with us. We'll be back with more What's Next after this short break, and we'll hear from Faustenia Morrow and Pastor Paul Thomas about their 5th annual MLK Day of Service event. This is What's Next on WBFO.
You're listening to What's Next, our place to discuss the important issues of our communities of Western New York and Southern Ontario. We want to hear from you. Click on the Talk to Us option in the WBFO app, and we'll work to get your questions or comments on the air. Do you have a story or concern that we should be addressing? Email us using whatsnext@wbfo.org. Together, we'll have the conversations that are needed. This is WBFO, your NPR station.
And welcome back to What's Next. Today, we're going to be talking about the Martin Luther King Day Jr. or Martin Luther King Jr. Day of Service here in the city of Buffalo. This is the 5th annual, as a matter of fact. Here with us to talk a little bit more about it, Faustenia Morrow, and also Pastor Reverend Paul Thomas from Bethel AME Church. Thank you very much for being with us.
Thank you. It's exciting to be here.
Yeah, thank you for having us.
Oh, it's a pleasure, and I'm excited to talk about this day because the idea of the day of service. Maybe let's just take a step back, talk about the first one because this is the 5th. Where did it originate from?
So actually, I was supposed to go to the inauguration, and this insurrection happened. And so all live events were canceled.
All right.
And that meant that I would be home in Buffalo. So I was like, if I'm going to be home, I got to do community service on MLK Day because I've participated. It's a national initiative.
Sure.
So I go online and I'm looking for something that's happening in Buffalo on the east side, and there's nothing. So I'm like, I wonder if I could get 10 people together. Literally, I go on Facebook and I'm like, 10 people volunteer will organize a cleanup or something on MLK Day. That was Friday. About about a couple hours later, 10 people signed up. And they were like, yes, let's do it. We show up that Monday, 20 people are there. And we decided to do a cleanup on Michigan Avenue. Now, I got to tell you that I was like, oh, we're going to clean up and down Michigan Avenue. Well, as I'm driving down Michigan Avenue, there's no trash. Now I'm freaking out. We got 10 people, it turned out 20. And I'm like, we got to have something for them to do. Because the city reached out to me and said, if you need pickers and bags and gloves, we'll give you that. So... luckily, there was trash for us to pick up, and we ended up in the corridor. So behind the corridor where the Nash House is, there's a big city trucks and stuff. And to my pleasant surprise, there was stuff for us to do. So 20 people down to 2 little young boys who were 7 and 9. Up to senior season people. We all got up there and picked up stuff, and then we coordinated with the city, and they picked up the trash and the pickers that they had given us. So that's how we started. That's
the start, but also getting your church pastor involved in this. How give us the origin story on that.
Well, Bethel AME Church has a major history or a standing in the city of Buffalo. It's the oldest African-American congregation in Western New York. Founded in 1831, just 1 year prior to the incorporation of the city of Buffalo. Bethel started as a church, a house church on Carroll Street, and moved to a building on Vine Street where we housed an underground railroad station. And because of the churches network throughout the South, sister churches in the South, we created a network of sending persons, Harriet Tubman, very popular, leading through our network, being stationed at our Vine Street church location, and so forth and so on. Well, the city took that building by eminent domain. It was located on Vine Street where William Street now exists, next to the library. And so that street, there's a parking lot sitting on it now. They took that by eminent domain, but that building housed the Underground Railroad, and Bethel has been a church since 1831, very involved in social justice, very involved in education. We've held in our history is published in a book by Dr. Monroe Fordham of Buffalo State University. And it talks about how Frederick Douglass would come and give lectures at the church, and followed by our connections with working against policies that adversely affected people of color as far as education is concerned. So Bethel has a long-standing history from its inception. And so even in this present day and age, it's not fallen on us to be involved in community activities. Bethel's legacy had been the Head Start program in conjunction with CAO. And Bethel, since the 1960s, had started a Head Start program that many people, there were city officials at our planning meeting this past Saturday that said, I attended Bethel Head Start. And there were, many people that have gone through the Head Start program, which was a pioneer of its kind in the 1960s. And so Bethel has always had its footprint in the community. And so when MLK Day comes around, it is encouraged in our congregation to volunteer at different opportunities throughout the city or community. And our partnership with Faustenia and Monarch of Infinite Impossibilities is a major one in which our youth can come together and volunteer, especially throughout the neighborhood.
So how many people of the people that typically volunteer, how many are youth? How many are not so youth, I guess?
You know what? That's a great question, because over the 5 years, it's really been encouraged as a kind of family affair. And frankly speaking, one of the youth who was part of those 2 was my nephew, who was 9. And if I can keep it real, I had just planned to do it that 1 year. And then my nephew enjoyed it so much that he was like, Auntie, he saw the archway as we were driving one day. He said, are we going to do that cleanup thing we did again in the community? I'm like, little boy, you don't even want to clean your room. You want to clean up in the community? And he said, yes, because it was fun. And actually, the other young man is a member of the church, Mackay, and he was like, can we get together with Mackay and, have opportunities to do stuff like this again? And so really it's been driven by the youth organically. And so when I think of over the 5 years, we have had families come out and bring their young people. And then this year, I'm so excited because in addition to all the people who are coming from all over Western New York, Buffalo Public School students heard about it and asked if they could sign up. And so when I look at the list of over 280 people signed up, we have several students, high school seniors even, who have signed up organically on their own because they want to give back to the city. So it is phenomenal to watch this grow organically, and I know it's because of the legacy of Dr. King.
Let's make sure we get this in, then we'll repeat it before the end of our conversation. But obviously, still time for people to get involved if they want to, right?
Yes, absolutely.
What's the best way?
So we have a sign-up platform that people can go to, and we have a website. So if they go to eastsidestewards.com/MLK Day, then they can go on and click on and sign up. And I'm sure if they Google Monarch or Cleanup, MLK Day of Service Cleanup, then they will find it out there in the universe and be able to sign up on our platform because it's on all social media everywhere. And so at the very least, if they can't find any of that, they can show up to the church, Bethel AME Church at 1525 Michigan Avenue.
That's right.
And come on in at 8 o'clock in the morning. Now, the doors open at 7:30, and we'll have breakfast and games and, kind of ways for people to get to know one another, and then they can register and be sent out to a site. Because we have over 20 now project sites.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so there would be lots of opportunity. Many of them are filled, but there would be lots of opportunity because what is that saying that Reverend Blue has? Many hands make light work.
And even when we're talking about the sites, the spirit of MLK Day is a spirit of love in action. And so it's opportunity for people, no matter the race, color, or creed, gender, disposition, political view, to come together and just demonstrate love in action. And I think it's fitting to do it on a day such as Inauguration Day, as it represents a very divisive day for many people across the country. I mean, there are over 70 million people who still feel a way that perhaps their particular candidate of choice did not win. And then 4 years prior to that, you had the same case. And I think that's what we experience more times than not. But it's a way where all of the different people come together and we demonstrated. So, for example, there's one church that had suffered vandalism, and they reached out and said, is it possible that we can get some volunteers? Well, let's demonstrate some love in action. There are churches or nonprofit organizations who say, okay, we have this space, but we'd like to use it. Maybe let's get some help to paint it and outfit it with some furniture, and then we can start using this space for the community. Love in action. Years ago, Bethel, maybe 2 or 3 years ago, we were developing a youth hub, a youth center. And I mean, there were white men, white women, black women. There were children, adults in the youth room, just painting, scraping, pulling wires and fixing things the way it needed to be so that we can create a space for youth, for children, love in action. And so I think the spirit of MLK Day is, despite our differences of opinion, love is the tie that binds us all together. And so if we can have opportunity to just work together just for the sake of betterment, then I think that would make us whole as a community.
I want to get into this. You kind of drew me into this part of the conversation.
Yeah.
I was going to say, but Martin Luther King Jr., I'm old enough to remember when he was assassinated, and I was a young kid, but I remember the sadness that was felt, and always had a certain sense of him being a hero. And of course, I also remember when the holiday was passed, the national holiday, and it was not universally accepted. I believe Arizona withheld for many years in honoring it. What about his legacy right now? And I'll let you take it anywhere where you want with this conversation. But what is his legacy here in this year, 2025?
Well, processing the legacy now, I have to understand what the movement was, and it was nonviolent response to violence and hatred in many forms. And it was not well received by even people of MLK's own culture. You had his contemporary, Malcolm X, we know him as, whose approach was more aggressive, eye for eye, kind of tooth for tooth, arm for arm kind of response in some way or another. So it was not well received, but I think that's what happens when we process the concept of love in action. It's not always easily perceived because I think we're so heightened in our paranoia and in our defenses and in our understandings and definitions of each other. So I think when it comes to MLK Day, we have seen it evolve as this intentional love in action, because I don't know that it was clear that nonviolence was perceived as love. It was perceived as weak in some instances. It was perceived as passive in some instances. And modeling Mahatma Gandhi's idea of nonviolent protest in India versus the Imperial British Empire. Studying that movement, MLK, I feel inspired by God, pushed an agenda of this will last longer. Nonviolence and a demand for fairness and equality through articulating our disposition, through talking about and pointing out the inequities and being civil in our presentation of it will outlast force and violence. And I think that's the legacy today, where we see people who will respond because something is not perhaps force-fed to them. The idea of community, the idea of equality, the idea of fairness and justice, both social, gender, economic, all of those components. And so when a person doesn't feel an agenda is being force-fed, I think a person is more apt to process and have conversation. And I think the MLK Day legacy is one where now you see it as commonplace all across the country of the United States, where it is a holiday for all cultures to come together and to do service in the name of love in action. And I think that's the legacy, that through love in action, we can build community despite our differences of opinion, and that's the legacy.
Go ahead,
and I'd like to add to that, because MLK Day we call it a day on and not a day off. It reminds me of the fact that Dr. King talked about you can be great because all of us can serve. Even if you're a street sweeper, even if you're a drum major, be a drum major for peace, right? And to me, what resonates now is that people are looking for some way to connect. One of my own mottos is that we're all connected. It's just a matter of figuring it out. You know what I mean? So I may not know you. I may have never encountered you. I don't know your people. But as we start talking, there is some connection. And when we connect, what an impact we can make. Because for me, I'm very organic about things. I don't try to force them. And when I think about MLK Day, it has grown organically. We put the word out there and people have come. And they've come to do what? A service. Like Pastor was saying, the first year that we did a service with Bethel AME, we were going to paint one room is what they signed up for. But we sent 25 volunteers. And I remember coming by about 2.5 hours later, and I'm thinking I'm, saying goodbye. The people are like, we want to stay. We want to work. I said, Pastor, I remember joking with Pastor. I was like, Pastor, how long are you going to keep the people? I told them 1 to 2 hours. 4 hours later, they didn't eat. They didn't sing. They prayed. Pastor went out and got more paint. I mean, it was incredible. And literally the people left saying, what more can we do? We want to come back. And so I'm finding that as this project continues to grow, there's countless stories like that. Yesterday we had a project leaders meeting, and every site talked about the amazing volunteers, which is all Western New York people, and they kept saying how they want to stay and do whatever they can. So I know if you're out there on social media or you're looking at the news, people want to sensationalize division. But I promise you, if nothing else, what I've seen with this MLK Day of Service is nothing but love in action. Nothing but people looking for a way to connect. Nothing but people looking for how they can go beyond the surface and really, be together.
We are talking with Faustenia Morrow and also Pastor Reverend Paul Thomas of Bethel AME Church here in Buffalo about the MLK Day of Service coming up on Monday. So, like you said, it sounds like volunteers are, once they get in, they don't want to leave. Let's just talk about a couple of the projects that you have going on. You said there's already 20, and it sounds like I'm hoping that maybe this program can maybe encourage a couple of other people to come out and join you. So there's going to be plenty to do. What are some of the things?
Yeah. So what I did from day one is just. After we moved from being an outdoor cleanup, because we kept having storms. So if your listeners can do anything, please pray that the weather is nice, meaning no snow, even if it's cold.
All right.
But the reality is we have projects from nonprofit organizations and churches. And in my business, which Monarch of Infinite Possibilities is my company, I focus on raising the level of awareness about the environment and the arts. So we try to do environmentally related projects. And that's where we started with cleaning with eco-friendly products, looking at ways to do painting in a more healthy way, recycling. And so this year, in the 20 projects, the word is caught on. And so the different churches are like, oh, we need painting. We need people to move things. And those are some of the different projects. And then yesterday, one of our churches, they have a clothing drive for kids. And so I'm so grateful. The city of Buffalo, through the mayor's office, gave them bags, like tote bags, so that they can bag up the clothing when they pass it out. And of the 20 projects, I think we're up to 15 of them are filled. But what's happening is some of the churches are calling and saying, hey, can we get in on it? And so we are still allowing people to sign up their project, and also volunteers are coming in. And it's so exciting because for me, even though I look 29, thank you.
Yes, of course.
I'm on the other side of 50.
Unlikely.
Well, thank you. Black don't crack, as they say. But I love seeing intergenerational opportunities. So imagine like whole families coming with grandma and then, those in the middle and young people. And so there are still opportunities out there. And trust me, if you know Pastor Paul, when they come to Bethel Church, he will find a job for them to do. Now, they might be there a few hours, but he's going to find something for you to do.
That's accurate.
So don't hesitate to volunteer and sign up.
You've got imagination when it comes to assigning jobs, do you?
I'm a visionary. Bethel, stepping into this primary context, Bethel started in September where we're doing an overhaul in our facility. We've had the outside pointed. We had the building painted. We have windows coming, and we're renovating the inside of our building, to step into the modern age. And do some things. So, and we share a parking lot with creative performing and creative arts Buffalo school, and so we have a nice space, and we're on the other side of the what's the skating rink called again?
Skateland.
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 Yeah,
Okay.
Skateland, And if she's somewhere, we've been trying to find you for 3 years, Sue. Amen. Nobody has your number, but we've been trying to find Sue for 3 years. And if you happen to listen to this, you call me at Bethel. I'm the new pastor. I've been there for 3 years. Shameless plug. Nevertheless,
well, it's all right.
But we've been working in that community to find ways. We had with Voice Buffalo, I think it was last summer or the summer before, it was called a brake light inspection and repair day, where if a person's brake light was out, they could pull up into the parking lot, and we had volunteer mechanics to look at it to help figure out whether it was changing the light bulb. So that section of the city, we try to find ways to be a light in the community and kind of be relevant. And so we're trying to clean it up and make it look like something that people want to come and visit and hang out.
And of course, if you're at Bethel AME, you're right near the Freedom Wall as well, right?
Right across.
Yes, which is, I could cry when I think about how God has, and I'm a woman of faith, so I have to keep it real, how God has just designed this all. I mean, this year, the inauguration falls on MLK Day of service. And then we're right across from the Freedom Wall, where you have heroines like Harriet Tubman on the wall, Dr. Fordham that he mentioned on the wall. just major community impactors and influencers on the wall. So I think as a backdrop, as people are walking in to do service at 8 o'clock in the morning, like, when not only are we going to feed them, because we have we provide breakfast for them. So we have a caterer that is providing delicious breakfast for them. So we're going to feed their bellies, their minds will be fed, and their hearts will be full. And then they'll pour that out into our community. Like, how beautiful is that?
And, that wall is very inspirational. On a regular basis, when I'm at the church, you'll see whether buses, cars, persons, white, black, yellow, green, male, female, come and they'll just stand in front of the wall. They'll read some of the captions or just look at the art, and they'll kind of soak it in, take it in, and then they'll, get back in the car or finish whatever tour they may be on or just keep on going. So that space, and I think that center is as inspirational. And East Ferry leads on down to the foot of Ferry where Freedom Park is, which I'm on that board. And we've done a great work at getting the park with the blessing of the family of Broderick, which the park was named after, Broderick Park, right, to have the park renamed Freedom Park because it was the launching space after persons were at Bethel's Vine Street Church location hidden. They would make the trek to Black Rock, which is Freedom Park, where a ferry from Canada would come over, pick them up, and take them on across. And so we've done a great work with bringing awareness to that park, having a summer-long series in the park of African dance or art, music, just by the water. It's called Healing by the Water. It's been a great initiative that the church is a part of, and it speaks to the legacy which is connected to Martin Luther King. Martin Luther King, I got that from Coming to America, Martin Luther the King. It slipped out. But it's connected to that legacy of nonviolence, love, and action. And I think that spirit that MLK was a part of, that many of us understand and are demonstrating, is the work of memorializing and crystallizing and cementing in history these pivotal spaces. Freedom Park, Bethel Church, located at Michigan, the Freedom Wall right across from it, the Michigan Street corridor where our previous location was down there near William Street. I think cementing this does a justice not only for Buffalo, but for Western New York, for residents on the east side. And it just speaks to where we can go and where we are going in the city.
And Pastor didn't tell me to say this, but I do want to say that in thinking about the fact that we're having MLK Day at Bethel on the other end, because we started by the Michigan Street African American Heritage Corridor, but as you swing on down Michigan, I honestly have been thinking about what would it look like to revitalize every hue of Michigan from Bethel heading on down like towards City Honor School and so forth. Because there is a revitalization happening in Buffalo. And I know this from an environmental standpoint because, in addition, this is my passion project, my volunteer, because we do this with 100% volunteers, if you can believe it. But the work that I do at the Monarch is focused on the environment. And Pastor would tell you, like, their church is in major renovations to make it environmentally sound for the community. And my desire is to see every church, frankly, involved in the environmental movement. Because when I think about the impact that Buffalo makes, partially because of the Great Lakes and our water, and if you look at what's happening, unfortunately, in California and other places where they lack water, like we have an abundance. So we don't think about the waste that we're doing. But imagine if we could revitalize the area, because there's a lot of money being poured into Buffalo in different pockets. Let's bring that on down by the Freedom Wall. Yeah. Okay. Yes. And what does that look like? So I think, I know it's by a divine design for people to come to Bethel Church because it sits like as a hamlet and, right there at the beginning. And if you drive down Michigan, starting at East Ferry and head towards the corridor and so forth, you can see that there's a lot of opportunity to do redevelopment. So I hope if someone's listening, they will begin to think about, how can we pour more money?
Yeah.
How can we pour more resources? How can we, make the church be what the church has always been, which is a voice and a place for people to come and be embraced.
Well, believe it or not, we're down to about our last minute here. So let's make sure, I know it goes fast, doesn't it? But let's make sure that we give the important information. Again, if we've intrigued somebody that wants to take part in this day of service, what can they do?
So come on down, 8 o'clock in the morning. The doors open at 7:30 to Bethel AME Church, which is across from the Freedom Wall, which is at the corner of Michigan and Ferry. And at 8 o'clock, we're going to have a little rally. We're going to come together, eat some food, and then go out to the various sites. So if you're looking to sign up, definitely go to eastsidestewards.com/MLK Day, and that'll take you to the volunteer sign up. And I'd be remiss if I didn't shout out our sponsors. We have the Buffalo Urban League, the NAACP Buffalo branch, the City of Buffalo, Maston District Councilwoman Everhart, AmeriCorps, Blue Image Photos, where we're going to do the 360 videos or photos, Confident Girl Mentoring, and Eastside Stewards. And so I'm just honored that Pastor Thomas would allow us to come into Bethel AME Church, and together we're going to do what Dr. King said, which is make a difference.
Love in action?
Love in action. That's the word of the day.
I like that. I'm going to try to keep that with me.
Please do.
Thank you so very much. Faustenia Morrow and Reverend Paul Thomas, thanks so very much for being with us here on What's Next, and hope to have you back. We could talk. I think there's a lot to talk about,
yes.
Right?
I can talk too.
I'm getting a feeling for that, but we'd love to have you come back. Hope you can. This has been What's Next on WBFO.
Support for WBFO and What's Next comes from our members and from Health Foundation for Western and Central New York, where racial and socioeconomic health equity are prioritized. Learn more about building healthier neighborhoods at hfwcny.org.